You're listening to the Spark Radio Network, Internet radio like you've never heard before. Innovation, creativity, and imagination are all said to begin with a spark. So fasten your seatbelt and take the ride of your life and listen for the spark.
This is Slickery Trigger for Rebel Road Tactical. With proper care and feeding, your pistol will be ready when you need it, there to save your life. Shouldn't your gear be that good? Whether you need a holster for comfortable everyday carry or a tough-as-nails holster for your next training course, Rebel Road Tactical has what you need. Check us out on the web at rebelroadtactical.com.
And so, my fellow Americans, ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country.
Freedom is never more than one generation away from extinction. We didn't pass it on to our children in the bloodstream. The only way they can inherit the freedom we have known is if we fight for it, protect it, defend it, and then hand it to them with the well-taught lessons of how they in their lifetime must do the same.
I'm not ready to end the fight. I'm not ready to back down. 'Cause I've been through hell and I don't have time to go round and round and round. It's too late to turn back now. You know I wouldn't if I could. 'Cause I'm proud as hell. I can't bring myself to do what it is you think I should.
Well, hello everybody. This is the Jen Rick Show. I'm one half of the crew, Rick. She's the other half, Jen. We're going to spend about the next hour talking to you about things that matter in the news, things we think are funny, things that NASA may or may not have screwed up on, and whether or not we have two candidates that have already possibly potentially committed treason. That's right, not just one, possibly two. But we're going to get to all that and more on this particular episode of Jen and Rick, and I'm going to take a second to let my co-host say good evening. How are you, ma'am?
I'm doing good. Just, as always, hanging out, watching all this crud go down.
Watching all the drama, man.
All the drama.
So, something, and this is kind of an audible because we didn't talking about this, but it's big in the news right now. Something that I just really am really kind of perturbed about, okay? So we've had all these different chances where Congress could have stood up to Obama and said, no, we really want this to happen, so it doesn't matter that you vetoed it. We're going to stand up and make sure that the people's voice is heard, and we're going to veto you on important things, like possibly maybe Obamacare or, the internet thing that's going on right now. But no. They couldn't do any of that. What they decided to do is there's been a bill that's been floating around Congress for a few weeks now that has made it possible, or the bill would have made it possible, for the family members of 9/11 victims to sue the country of Saudi Arabia. Now, on the face of it, this is one of those little chest puff moments where you're like, oh, great, good things for Americans. Saudi Arabia was evil. They were behind all this stuff, and that's a good thing, right? I mean, they should be able to get reparations. Notice I said reparations. Let's not forget there's another body right now that says the United States owes reparations to a certain group of people for upending their lives hundreds of years ago, having their relatives brought over here, etc. This is one of those unintended consequences type scenarios that I really don't think anybody has thought through. Just saying.
Yeah, I don't think so either. All of these things, I don't know. With Obama, it just seems like what he chooses and what this Congress then chooses to really fight on or not. And, there's different wings, I think, in the Republican Party and Congress. There's the kind of what typically we've described as the establishment wing that kind of compromises, rolls over, would be what a lot of people would use. Or otherwise...
I prefer the term bends over, but that's okay.
Bends over, engages with the Democrats in a positive manner and, tries to compromise and be bipartisan and, not go too hard against... that's how it feels. That's how it seems. And I think that's one of those many things that led us to Trump. And then there's the faction of the Republican Party that constantly fights anything and everything, and sometimes not even for a good reason. Sometimes it's just because it's Obama. So in this situation, we've got the entire Senate, except for one, that votes, to override a veto. And I think that in recent memory is one of the most cooperative actions taken by this group of people that I've seen in a long time. And it just was kind of interesting to me. And I think, a lot of it has to do with the emotions of the recent passing of the 15-year mark of 9/11.
Yeah, that's one way to look at it. Let me put my pragmatist hat on, because, it sounds great. 15th anniversary, Congress finally did something that they view to be constructive, but let's dissect this a little bit, because who's really going to see the most money out of deals like this? It's going to be the attorneys. It's going to be the same law firms that donate to these people day in and day out and hold fundraisers and invite them to big parties and connect them with the right people, and they just got a huge feather in their cap. But what nobody's taking into account is, this is great. Okay, so America can sue Saudi Arabia for things that Saudi Arabian citizens may or may not have done or helped do involved in the Twin Tower attack. But has anybody thought about what happens now that the reverse is going to happen? Because what do you think is going to happen the first time somebody finally says, hey, let's stick it to these Arabs and let's go sue Saudi Arabia? What do you think is going to happen? Do you think Saudi Arabia is going to sit down for that? Do you think they're just going to be like, oh, yeah, we fully understand that our people have done something bad and therefore we're just going to hand you all this money? No. They're going to start looking for any little excuse they can find to return the favor and start suing people that have done things to them that they don't like, or soldiers that have done things that were inappropriate, etc. And then we're going to have to be left as a country holding that bag. And that's exactly what I mean by unintended consequences. This is one of those things that I talk about all the time. Look, for all of you right now that are pounding your chest and you're like, oh my God, this is great, this is great. If you're just because you're okay with it now, when the shoe is suddenly on the other foot, and all of a sudden the other side that we're now ready to go lawsuit crazy against has the same general power and can turn that back on us, are you still going to be just as happy? I think the answer to that question is probably no.
Right. Well, and I also think you said something a minute ago that I was going to comment on. What was it? Well, I do think that they're not only just like lawsuit happy, but it does kind of, I think it's kind of a show thing. I mean, they can't really expect to get anything from this, right? I mean, it's like you said, it's either going to get turned around on us or it's not going to really go anywhere. One thing, as with everything, or I do wish was the case, was that none of it had anything to do with the federal government or our president or our Congress deciding whether an individual could or couldn't do this thing. But that's the world we live in, and especially with international relations, that's the road we have to go down. But I think that it, especially the vote in the Senate, was more of an emotional vote and a show vote than it was really about the likelihood of winning any sort of lawsuit against these countries.
I mean, because let's face it, everybody knows that the lawsuit's not going to be worth the paper it's printed on by the time it's all said and done. Because let's not forget that at this point we're looking at a really good shot of being involved in something. Anybody remember the TPP? That is still being bandied about and is still in the works, and nobody's really talking about it right now because we're too busy watching two monkeys and one in a pantsuit and one in a regular suit trying to fornicate a football at the same time, and it's just fun and entertaining. And I'm sorry, that's still my synopsis of the debate.
Funny.
But yeah, so I mean, just that, never mind that, and let's not forget the fat shaming of the beauty pageant contestant, etc. Because there aren't really important things that are still going on that nobody's talking about. Like, again, this lawsuit bill that is now apparently going to become a law because it's been overridden. And, I just have to say this because this is probably the only time I'm ever going to have to say this. but damn you for making me side with Old Barry Big Ears. Because I've never agreed with that man about anything in the nearly 8 years he's been in office, and for once I'm having to side with him, and for once he's not wrong. This was a terrible idea.
Right. I know. That always is frustrating. And, you know, I think this was probably one of those things that he didn't want to have to be on that side of. You know, I mean, who wants to be looking at 9/11 families saying, you can't do that because it will have these consequences or it will be problematic in these ways? Who wants to look at the families of people that lost someone in our greatest, national tragedy and say, no, sorry, you can't get reparations from that through these avenues. You know, I don't think this is something that he chose lightly to go up against. And I think also, again, and that kind of leads me to where I say, I think some of these people just fight it just because of his name, just because it is Obama.
You know, it's interesting that you say that, because this morning when I'd heard the news, because I was a little behind, I actually tweeted out that I don't think we thought this through very well, which is kind of the way I opened the show. And I actually started seeing people tweet out the fact that they don't care about the unintended consequences because we just stuck it to Barry.
Right. Yeah. And that's why I was saying about this, that wing of the Republican Congress that I think is always kind of like that.
Well, yeah, but I mean, it's not even really just the Republican Congress anymore. It's almost everywhere. I mean, that's the problem. Up until now, everybody's talked about how to win elections, the Democrats are willing to use scorched earth policies to make sure that nobody else but them is left standing. So my question is, when both sides are now employing the same scorched earth tactics, what's going to be left to save when we're willing to destroy everything to be the last person standing?
Right. I mean, it's nothing. Nothing's left to say.
Yeah, it's just a thought that's been bugging me all day ever since I saw all these people start chiming up with, "Who cares, Rick? We stuck it to Barry. We finally stuck it to Obama. We'll deal with the rest of it later." I'm like, this is what has gotten us here. You guys have become so driven by emotion, so angry over all the different things that you feel this government has done wrong over the last 8 years. And I'm not saying you're wrong for feeling that way. I'm not saying there are not things this government has done that they shouldn't have done. We could spend 3 hours listing off all the things that shouldn't have happened under this administration and some of the things that shouldn't have happened under the last administration, and we probably still wouldn't get all the way through the list, even if we expanded to a 3 hour and just ran all the way through. But that's not the point. When you're willing to destroy everything you believe in just to stick it to the other side, we've already lost. It's what I've been saying this entire cycle. We have become something that our party, and I'm still calling them our party because yes, I've left, but in my heart, I'm still a Republican. I'm registered as a libertarian, but in my heart, I do believe that the Republican Party used to stand for something. They don't anymore. At this point, all they're concerned about is victory. All their talking heads and their political voices are only concerned about victory. Their party heads are only concerned about victory. But when you start looking at victory as the end-all, be-all, ultimate goal, and you don't pay attention to what you're having to do to get there, and by the time you're finally standing there and you're like, woohoo, we got the White House, and the rest of the country's in a complete shambles and your party's completely destroyed, what difference is it really going to make?
Yep. I mean, I really do agree with you. And I'm with you. I continuously still say we and our because it's old habits die hard.
I mean, come on.
Like you.
As soon as I was old enough to vote, I registered Republican.
To stand for and
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Right. No, totally. That's exactly right. And myself too. And I still believe in the principles that brought me to them in the first place, and I think it's just gotten a little...
Well, it's gotten a little bit crazy is what it's gotten. So... And here goes the Skype monster again. Nice. All right, so we're trying to see if we can get connection back with her. I'm going to keep talking about this whole scenario with the Obama situation. I'm really starting to think that her Skype and my Skype don't like each other because this is kind of becoming a weekly thing. All right, so we're going to take an impromptu break while I see if I can get her back, because she's not coming back right away. So we'll be right back here in just a couple minutes.
Then hand it to them with the well-taught lessons of how they in their lifetime must do the same.
I'm not ready to end the fight. I'm not ready to back down. 'Cause I've been through hell and I don't have time to go round and round and round. It's too late to turn back now. You know I wouldn't if I could. 'Cause I'm proud as hell. I can't bring myself to do what it is you think I should.
All writers are prone to becoming so attached to our characters and stories that we struggle to see why a passage may not be working. It takes another set of eyes to help us nurture our writing to full maturity. At Black Wolf Editorial Services, we strive to enable writers to develop and grow, shaping stories into masterpieces that can stand the test of time. Editing services are provided for all genres and all age categories. Services range from critiques of a short story through to the line edits of a full-length novel and copy editing for those preparing for publication. We also offer assistance on generating a writer's bio for your websites, as well as help with those book blurbs and promotional material. We won't abandon you to the masses. We want to celebrate with you in your successes. Black Wolf Editorial Services, nurturing your writing into maturity. For a full list of services and prices, visit us at blackwolfeditorial.com.
Individuals and businesses with tax problems, listen carefully. Do you feel like you're losing control over your finances? If you owe over $10,000 in back taxes or have unfiled tax returns, we can help you take back control. The IRS is the largest and most aggressive collection agency in the world, and they can seize your bank account, garnish your paycheck, close your business, and file criminal charges. Take control of your tax problems now by calling the experts at Tax Mediation Services and take advantage of the Fresh Start program and new laws that may allow us to negotiate a settlement for the lowest amount possible. Our team of tax attorneys and enrolled agents can stop collections and get you protected so you can take control of your financial future. Tax Mediation Services is accredited by the Better Business Bureau. Call now for a free case review and a price protection guaranteed quote.
Call Tax Mediation Services now at 800-610-9050. That's 800-610-9050. 800-610-9050.
This is Slickery Trigger for Rebel Road Tactical. With proper care and feeding, your pistol will be ready when you need it, there to save your life. Shouldn't your gear be that good? Whether you need a holster for comfortable everyday carry or a tough-as-nails holster for your next training course, Rebel Road Tactical has what you need. Check us out on the web at rebelroadtactical.com.
Back now, you know I wouldn't if I could. 'Cause I'm proud as hell, I can't bring myself to do what it is you think I should.
Okay, so we think we figured it out. It's this whole, they're about to turn the internet over to a foreign body and it's making it start running like crap because, Skype does not seem to like us anymore. So I'm blaming this whole internet turnover. Nobody can convince me otherwise. Okay.
I'll go with that.
So anyway, we seem like we have a connection again, so we're going to keep on rolling with things. We've actually kind of taken the break early, so I guess we don't necessarily have to take another one, but we can keep one in the pocket in case something else comes up. So anyway, where were we at when I lost you? Because I was talking and then you were gone. I'm not sure.
I don't even remember anymore. We were both just annoyed with the state of things and the yelling into, the kind of like old man yells at cloud type deal with where we've gotten with politics.
That's a pretty apt description of how I feel lately, because I feel like all I'm really accomplishing is yelling into the wind. And
exactly. It's just to oppose them, and that's just not getting us anywhere.
And it's one of those things where we have all of these people that have such bigger followings and bigger voices, and the first thing they did was jump on the Trump train and go, woohoo, come with us. I mean, I saw, and I don't usually mention this guy by name, but he's really starting to annoy me. So Bill Mitchell, who claims to have like the number one talk show on Spreaker. First of all, that reminds me of someone else I know that just claimed to be like the number 3 conservative on Twitter. How the heck would you even possibly know that, for one? Second of all, the dude was like all over Twitter talking about the fact that he doesn't understand why it is that we can't use, how exactly did he term it? What was it? Self-selected internet polling as opposed to polls run by a bunch of liberals of a small select group. Well, Bill, let me explain it to you since you don't seem to understand. When is the last time anybody listening has actually done an online poll? Does it only let you click the button once, or can you refresh it and click it as many times as you want? Question number one. Question number two. When it's a political poll and it's involving United States politics, is there any possible way for them to verify before you click the button that, number one, you're not in Canada or freaking Great Britain or Russia or wherever else before you click that button? No, they can't do that. So there's several different reasons why these supposed vaunted self-selected polls really shouldn't be being used, because they're skewed. Because usually, first of all, I mean, if Drudge puts out a poll, let's be honest, what type of people are usually looking at Drudge, especially lately? Trump supporters. So are you going to be a little skewed? And then what happens when you get maybe 100 Trump supporters on a poll that click the button 100 times, and suddenly 100 Trump supporters become 10,000 Trump supporters?
My
I wonder.
favorite thing I saw towards him today was Rhino Pundit, Twitter. He said, I fail to understand why I should accept the opinion of a pollster with a 500 sample over a self-selected poll of 1 million, that same tweet that Bill Mitchell put out. And he quoted it and said, we have neither the time nor the crayons to explain it to you. And I thought that was hilarious.
But look at the guy's account. And at first I thought maybe he was one of those guys that goes and pays for followers, because I can't imagine that many people paying attention to him. But apparently he's not. I verified him. He's got a little bit, but then so do a lot of us. Every once in a while, if you sneak in, we got to go clean the house. But I mean, look, and even his Spreaker numbers, they're not terrible, which means he's got lots of people listening to him. Why is it that the people that don't even understand how this stuff works or why it should work are the ones that are like, oh, well, why can't I just take people's words for polls that they get on the internet and click it as many times as they want and say that Trump's going to win?
Because Trump rots the brain. I mean, I think it just boils down to that. He rots your brain out. I mean, it's some sort of disease. It gets in there and it wraps around every corner of your brain, and you can't think logically anymore. It's crazy. And so all those people are the ones that are following him, and know that some of these people that have just had crazy numbers jump up and all sorts of other kinds of celebrity status launched, all they had to do was say the T word. All they had to do was jump on the Trump train. It's amazing how that populist wave has it keeps building and building and building. It's crazy.
I mean, it really is. At first, I really didn't pay that much attention to it, but the scary thing is, I know some people that started really getting serious into talk shows around the same time that I really started getting serious into talk shows. And they've converted to Trump supporters. And in just the few months since they've done that, their followings have tripled, if not quadrupled, in a lot of ways. And it's this populist wave of anger that is feeding this stuff. But here's my thing. Yeah, for now, they look really popular, because that was another thing that Bill Mitchell put out. The other day he was like, well, nobody really listens to Levin anymore. Glenn Beck's career's in the toilet, and Sean Hannity's numbers are through the stratosphere. So you tell me who's making the better decisions, or some crap like that. And I'm just like, well, yeah, maybe for the moment they seem that way. But what's going to happen when, one, he loses, or two, The even worse scenario is that he gets into office and does every single thing, or a good portion of every single thing, that those of us that have been yelling that he was the wrong choice do. And he does those things. Because that one of those two things is going to happen. Because there is no way, if he gets into the White House, that he's going to be the conservative savior that a lot of these people want to think that he is, because he doesn't think that way.
Well, yes, and that's been pointed out time and time again, and so many of these people don't even care, though. That doesn't even matter. They just want change. They want an outsider. They want someone who talks straight, shoots from the hip, which, I mean, I don't even understand how they can still keep saying that with things like happened the other night, where he won't even admit that he had the sniffles. Like, he just lies to lie. I mean, there's no rhyme or reason for it. But none of that really matters. They've latched on. They are semi-obsessed, or completely obsessed in some cases, with him and his celebrity, and you just can't, there's no evidence you can show them or anything you can really say that's going to make them change their mind. And they believe him when he says things like the best, the greatest, the bigly best there ever were. That they just believe every time he says that. I don't know that there's much of anything anyone can do or say to change that.
No, I mean, I agree with everything that you just said, but something just dawned on me, because everybody's been throwing this word bigly around, and I noticed the other night at the debate, he kept trying to say big league, and it kept sounding like bigly. So I'm wondering if he was just talking so fast that nobody could tell.
That one sentence I actually did go over again, and he says bigly something, big league. I think he did actually use bigly. It's going to be a bigly blah, 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 blah. And then at the end of the sentence, he said, and it will be big league. So I think he did both of them, because I know that for sure he has admitted before that he likes that word, and why can't he make up a word? Of course, he's Trump. I mean, guy that you can show him a video of him saying something and he said, I never said that. And you go, but this is the video of you saying it. I don't care. I mean, you just can't even argue with them, which is part of what has made this game so unstoppable and so maddening.
Yeah, I mean, to me, it's just completely insane that you can actually show him video of something that he said, and he's like, I never said that. So do you have a doppelganger that nobody knows about? Because that looked and sounded remarkably like you.
He doesn't care. He just stares blankly and says no, and then, until they move on. I mean, it's really brilliant as a way to just deflect and not have to face any hard truths, but also quite insane.
So speaking of deflecting and not having to face any hard truths, let's go ahead and segue to story number 2. So everybody, we've been talking about Hillary and all these terrible things that Hillary's done, and I'm not discounting anything that she may or may not have done, including and the fact that she was using an unsecured server to transmit email and possible locations for an ambassador. I still personally hold her accountable for Benghazi. But let's face it, at this point, not sure anything's ever going to come of that. And we actually have some audio that I'll be using on Monday's America Off the Rails show to actually kind of go over some of the reasons why I think we've been had and why this was all staged. But we'll talk about that more on Monday's show. But why I bring this up now is because we've seen all the things that she's done that are so terrible. But we've been telling you for months that there were things that were going to come out about Trump that were going to be just as bad, if not worse. So there is a story coming out about one of his business dealings that has him apparently breaking the Cuban embargo for business and for profit.
Right. So this was reported in Newsweek that Trump hotels and casino resorts paid a consulting firm in Cuba to help the company in the event that the U.S., that we did lift sanctions and restrictions and were able to actually do business there. The consulting firm, this is from ABC News, the consulting firm and the Trump company later attempted to cover up the transaction by making it look like legal spending for a charity. The Clinton campaign, has obviously latched onto this and attacked him over, possibly violating the Cuban embargo. But this is not just like when you see, okay, paid a consulting firm. Some people might be thinking of a number of like a couple $1,000s. Apparently, it's upwards of $68,000 for investigating potential business opportunities. That's a lot of money. That's not just cash at a firm and let them kind of feel some stuff out. I mean, that's big bucks to be spending over there where you are that you're trying to cover up and not have be found to be illegal.
I mean, exactly. Yeah, it's just one of those things, and I think, again, what has me so incensed about this is you see all the Trump supporters, because, this is all over social media, and the first thing they're doing is, oh, look, Hillary Clinton, who's broken all these laws and broken all these rules, is pointing out when somebody else may or may not have broken the law. Look, I don't have an issue with... What I have an issue with is, yeah, maybe she's not the best person to be throwing the stone, but is there validity in what she's saying? Because if there is, then how can you continue to hold her feet to the fire for all the things that she's done wrong and possibly excuse him for something that he's done wrong? At this point, both parties are just as hypocritical as the other, because when it's the other side that's doing unethical things and breaking laws and everything else, oh my God, that's terrible. When somebody on the side that you believe in does it, oh, that's for the greater good.
Well, and I think that it's important to note that a lot of these people were reacting in a way in which because she's the one that tweeted out, to her millions of followers, she tweeted this out, and it kind of seemed like it came from Hillary's campaign. While she obviously highlighted the article that she did put out there, Newsweek is the one who printed this. This came from Newsweek. This did not come from Hillary Clinton's campaign initially. This is a report in Newsweek. And even when Marco Rubio was asked about this, because obviously, he's going to be someone, Florida and Cuban relations, to have to comment on this. He even in his answer was like, well, if the Clinton campaign is putting this out, and if it's true. I mean, even at the time when he first answered, he didn't know that it was from Newsweek. So I think that is kind of flying over the head and incensing a lot of anger with people, because I think it's like, oh, well, Hillary is saying this, and who is she? Also, she's a liar, so she's a crook and she's corrupt. And she has a lot of questionable things, but it did not originate with her. So I think that's something that people need to understand, is that, of course, her campaign capitalizes on it and is going to throw it out there and use it to the best of her ability. But this is actually comes from a reputable source.
Well, no, and exactly. And I think that's the majority of my point when it comes to all this is, the simple fact of the matter is, look, I understand that she's not the best person, and again, she shouldn't be the one possibly throwing the first stone in regards to this, but at this point, this is exactly what we told everybody was going to happen. They were going to find things that made Donald Trump look as bad, if not worse, than Hillary Clinton, and in some ways that's already happening, and now we're just now getting to the 40 most busy days, sorry, suddenly English language has escaped me, of the campaign season. And it's only going to get worse from here, because if they've already brought this out, I guarantee you there's worse.
No, absolutely. And, this has been said all along. And I think even today, another thing that came out about Trump's foundation is that the Washington Post reported that the state attorney general's records found that the foundation never obtained the registration required of charities that solicit more than $25,000 per year. If the state attorney general finds that Trump's foundation raised this sum or more from public donations, it could be ordered to cease fundraising activities or even refund all the money it's raised since. So, some of this is going to, there are always going to be skeletons in closets of people that have just had corporations have done business on the large scale that Trump has. There's going to have been mistakes made. There's going to have been things that weren't filed correctly at a time or two. all of that kind of thing can be fairly, overlooked in routine in business. But some of this seems, with bad intent. And that's what you have to look at and be worried about. And there's a lot of evidence that he has had ethically questionable, issues throughout his career.
No, I mean, and exactly. And, it's one of the things that I keep pointing out, because everybody keeps talking about what a corrupt politician Hillary Clinton is, and that we can't really call Trump a corrupt politician because he's never actually been in politics. And I keep pointing out, look, in my book, corruption is corruption is corruption. If you can find corruption in his business dealings, it means that he's just as likely to be a corrupt politician if given the chance. And how many different things are we seeing now, day in and day out, that point to some form of corruption? Some of it not on a large scale, others pretty damning, like this whole Cuban embargo thing. And like I said, if they're already bringing this out with about 40 days to go, then I'm sure there is worse waiting in the wings, because it's the same thing that we're going back to the same thing that we've been talking about all cycle. The conservatives let the media pick their candidate. This time it wasn't necessarily the mainstream media that did it, but it was media sites like Fox News, and the Drudge Report, and all these others that lined up and said, okay, Trump's the guy, because Trump's not going to go Mitt Romney, and he's not going to take any prisoners, and there's no way that we're going to lose with this guy. Yeah, actually there is, because you didn't vet him first.
Well, I do think, though, that some of the mainstream does have responsibility, too, because I think that they thought it was such a spectacle, and they thought it would be hilarious if this guy represented the GOP, and that there'd be no way he could possibly win against, Hillary. And as they're finding, as he creeps closer to her in the polls, and as there seems to be some just unsettlingly, unsetting. Why can I not talk?
It's my fault.
Yeah, you transferred it to me. You gave it to me. Unsettling things coming out of some of the swing states of, some indications that he may actually be gaining some ground there. That, this is their fault too, because they thought this would be funny. They thought that it would represent Republicans terribly, which it does. They thought that it would destroy the Republican Party. And they didn't vet him either, because they hoped that they could just do it after he won the primaries and was up against Clinton, and then she'd win in a landslide. And it's just not looking like that any longer. So I do think that they bear some responsibility, but ultimately I feel like it falls on the GOP and on conservative media that took the bait and fell for the con.
No, and I agree. And I don't necessarily want anybody to think that I'm giving the mainstream media a pass. I'm just saying at this point, usually by now, our side of the argument with our media sources would have at least been trying to do something. They did a better job vetting McCain and Romney than they did with Trump. And we still lost.
Right.
Okay, so
right.
We're down to about 15 minutes. We've got at least two other stories I wanted to touch on. Now, we're going to kind of take things in a bit of a fun direction for the rest of the show. At least I kind of think so. I'm getting a little burned out with being so mad about politics all the time. Did you know it's National Coffee Day?
No. Is it?
You didn't know it was National Coffee Day?
How did I not know this? I haven't been on Twitter enough. I've been doing that crazy thing where you hang out with family and enjoy the moment and aren't on social media. It's weird. I know, but you found a time machine and were transported back to the 80s. Is that what you're telling me? Pretty much. That's pretty much been today. Oh, so yeah, anyway, so it is National Coffee Day. I have been celebrating by making sure that each cup of coffee I had was Irished. No judgments, the world's gone to hell, I can have some Irish in my coffee. Do that all day. Yeah, I mean, I can't do it all day because, I do still have a day job. But when I was away from home, there was sure some Irish in my cup of coffee that I had once I got home. But yeah, so anyway,
National Coffee Day. I celebrated it by drinking lots and lots of coffee. So to me, I guess every day should be National Coffee Day because there's really not a day that I can go without coffee or people might die. Just being completely honest.
Yeah, I drink my fair share, so I'm with you there.
All right, and last bit of fun news, actually also disappointing and frustrating news, is apparently NASA has decided they needed to mess with my horoscope. They have added another constellation, and I'm not even going to attempt to pronounce that name. I don't care. But thanks to them adding that constellation, or I guess the constellation's always been there. It's just apparently, according to the article, there have always been 13 signs, but 12 would really only fit in well since there's only 12 months in the year. So the folks that came up with astrology decided to drop that 13th constellation, and I guess NASA, in their infinite wisdom, has decided to put it back in. And I'm not even, again, saying the name of this constellation, because thanks to this constellation, I'm now officially supposed to be a Taurus, not a Gemini. I'm not changing. I don't care. I'm just not.
Yeah. I think it makes me, oh shoot, what does it make me? I can't remember. I'm trying to look here. I'm typically a Capricorn, which if you know me and look at any of the obvious things about Capricorn, pretty much me to a T. So, but it made me into something else, and I can't remember what it is, and I don't care because I'm not going to say that that's what I am now. I'm just not.
You know, and that's the thing that I guess doesn't make any sense to me, because there's always been this, I guess when I was younger, maybe there was this concept where there were two different types of calendars that were used for the astrological signs, because on one it had me as a Gemini and the other it had me as a Taurus, and then I guess at some point they phased completely over to the one that had me a Gemini, and I guess somebody decided we need to change back. But back when I was kind of confused, because I would look at one, it would have me in one, and the other would have me in the other. I looked at the differences between the two signs, and there's no way I'm this one over here. This one over here describes me to a T. And I mean, Gemini is not exactly the best sign. I mean, it's the sign of a crazy person, but I mean, who's to say I'm not? I'm just saying. Yeah.
Crazy, eh?
Yeah, well, maybe a little bit. So no, not really, but the easiest way to describe a Gemini would basically be like the astrological sign of multiple personalities, because we can like flip on a dime. And for anybody who knows a fellow Gemini that I hang out with on a regular basis, Miss Polita Bunny, you definitely know that is true.
Yes, I think that she embodies that quite well. Maybe people don't see it in other realms as much, but when you talk to her on a daily basis, that's when when some of these things about signs, which I mean I don't like, but when those kinds of things come up is when you know someone personally and talk to them daily that you're like, oh, okay, I see that. Oh, that makes sense.
See, and actually with when her birthday is, I don't honestly think she was impacted. I think
she's one of the few.
I honestly don't remember the exact day she was born, and even if I did, I wouldn't want to give it out on the air. But it slid like Gemini to like June 11th or some crap, and I'm like, that puts me over to Taurus, and I don't like Taurus. My wife is a Taurus. Taurus fits my wife. Taurus does not fit me.
Yeah, I think it ends up making me a Sagittarius, which I want. Not up my alley, but you know, whatever.
I mean, it's not. I mean, like you said, this isn't really something that I believe in, and it's not a big deal. But it's the little things. It's all these crazy changes. I mean, first my party goes nuts. Now they screwed with my sign. What the hell?
Hey, and before that, they took away Pluto.
Well, they didn't take away Pluto. Pluto just got demoted. I
know, but still, it got demoted from the solar system. Everything I learned as a kid. You know what else that happened with? It happened with the Brontosaurus. And you know they brought it back. Said, never mind, we were right after all. So they took it away for about 15 years or something. Said, no, there actually is a Brontosaurus after all. They were putting some things together wrong. So, yeah, but I don't like this kind of change.
There's just certain things that need to be left alone. My constitution and my astrological sign are two of the things that just must be left alone. I'm just saying. I mean, this is not cool. I mean, you're all of a sudden I'm supposed to be a Taurus, and I'm just like, no, I don't even like the gun Taurus, much less the sign. And I'm a gun guy.
It's one of those things that for a long time has been an easy, having worked, in bars and restaurants for forever, it was an easy go-to to trip up someone that you thought was maybe trying to use a fake ID or was underage, but the ID still looked valid. You'd say, what's your sign? And if they couldn't automatically name it, then you're like, okay, especially females. That doesn't work as tried and true on males, but I know, sorry, I'm being sexist here, but
no, it's just because we're better liars.
But especially females, and so now it's like, oh, that's just gonna mess that all up. I'm like, oh well, the old chart or the new chart. So I guess I'll have to figure something else to have my door guys.
No. It'll still work because anybody below the age of 21 will be the one that's like the old chart or the new chart. Because anybody that's as old as us is like, F the new chart, man. So that you still have a way to figure it out because you'd be like, hey man, what's your sign? Dude, and then you're going to be like, the old chart or the new chart? And you'll be like, yep, that's fake. Nope, can't get in.
Move along, bucko. Well, did you see that California is criminalizing child prostitution?
So wait, child prostitution wasn't illegal in California before now?
No, it was, but they are, for kids under 18, they are, so that they won't have records, like if they were prostituting.
Wait, so I missed part of one of the syllables. You said they're decriminalizing. Okay.
Decriminalizing.
Okay.
And so advocates say that this is good because they need to be treated as victims, not as criminals. I mean, they're under 18 and involved in prostitution. And I think they're probably right about that. But what law enforcement and advocates against human trafficking and stuff say is, but now this makes it harder when they can't arrest them for these quote unquote crimes and detain them to get them away from their abusers. If they are being forced into it. So it's kind of a little controversial thing that's happening. So we'll have to kind of keep an eye on that and see how it all goes down. But I see both sides. It's just kind of scary.
Yeah, I'm not sure how much I agree with that based on my background. I mean, I understand the reason why they're thinking this is going to be a good thing, but let's put the shoe on the other foot for a second. How many times have we been able to take down somebody higher up in some sort of a child pornography, child prostitution ring because we were able to get a hold of one of the younger kids, put some pressure to them, got them to flip in exchange for not having a criminal record? I don't think we necessarily need to take that off the table because it works. Not only that, but the part of it that you just brought up that I hadn't even thought about, where they could be like, if nothing else, they can charge them, hold them for 72 hours, get them some time to get away from these people, see if they're willing to talk, and then determine what they're going to do next. If we take that off the table, then it's just going to make it that much harder to find our ways into things like this and be able to get it broken up.
Right. And also, I think something that's overlooked is that maybe you need to figure out, maybe if instead of decriminalizing these things, which, it takes away certain tools for law enforcement, like you're saying, that maybe you need to work with the DA's office so that they are having a lower rate of prosecution of these kinds of things if these kids, even minimally cooperate. Maybe charges not being as harsh, or because that's who it's up to. It's up to the DA's office most of the time on whether they're going to actually pursue anything on a 15-year-old prostitute. I mean, they don't have to, and I think they probably don't more often than not. But like you said, it can absolutely be a tool of the department to use to be able to infiltrate something that's very, very disgusting and kind of the worst people that you want to be able to break their ring and get them off the street.
I'd like to do more than break their ring.
I know. No. Well, I didn't mean to bring us down on a sour note. I just saw that and was like, whoa, wait, what? Of course,
no, it's all right. All right, so anyway, believe it or not, we are about out of time. So why don't we do what we normally do at the end of the show, and you can remind folks where they can hang out with you when you're not hanging out with me.
Sure. You mostly will find me on Twitter at J Homestead, and also on Facebook, J.R. Homestead, and come read some stuff at misfitpolitics.weebly.com.
Unless she's hanging out with family, then you're not going to find her anywhere. Just saying.
That's true.
Just messing with you. All right.
Tomorrow I might be on the lake, so everyone might be SOL.
Really? You're going to go out on the lake and leave me with the craziness known as Twitter on a Friday?
Yep. Sorry about that.
I thought we were friends. All right. So anyway, I am Rick Robinson. I'm kind of one of the head honchos around these parts, and you can interact with me several different ways. Easiest way, quickest way is Twitter. Recommend that you go to AOTR_host. If you're old school, you like to shoot off emails, I do answer those occasionally. You have two options, Ricky@thesparkradionetwork.com or Rick@KLRNradio.com. And if you don't have Twitter and you don't like email, you can always go to Facebook. You can find two pages that talk about me. One is America Off the Rails, the radio show page. You can go give that a like. You can also find my professional profile at www.facebook.com/Rowdy Ricky Robinson. Shoot me a friend's request. We'll talk, we'll chat, we'll hang out. Although, honestly, I'm only on that profile about once or twice a month. So I still honestly recommend that if you want to communicate on a regular basis, and I do like to talk to you folks. I do it all the time. I just usually prefer Twitter because my phone's always on me and it's kind of easy to keep up. But on that note, we have got to get out of here. Actually, we had a technical issue today, so for those of you that were tuning in looking for America Off the Rails, I promise I was still here. Just for some reason, you guys couldn't hear the show. So we're going to mix things up a little bit tonight. We're going to do a live run with Jackson Richmond. Almost called him Andrew Jackson. Man, I am tired. Jackson Richmond, who is an author and actually does a show with us on Sundays when it's running through his radio station in his university. And we're going to actually have him on to kind of talk a little bit more about the debate that was Monday night, because the panel got a little raucous and he kind of got drowned out. So I'm going to give him a chance to come on, kind of give a little bit more of his opinions. And then, of course, there's other news of the day that I'm sure we'll get to as well. But we have got to get out of here to get ready for that. So stay tuned. A special live episode in the evening time again of America Off the Rails. We'll be back here in just a couple minutes with my guest, Jackson Richmond. Have a great night, folks. In case it's too late for you, don't forget you can always catch it tomorrow in its regular time slot. We'll be running it there too. Or, of course, the Memorex versions that are pretty much everywhere now, thanks to Jess. There's so many now, I can't even list them all. We're out, folks. Have a good night. Take care. God bless.
And so, my fellow Americans, ask not what your country can do for you. Ask what you can do for your country.
Freedom is never more than one generation away from extinction. We didn't pass it on to our children in the bloodstream. The only way they can inherit the freedom we have known is if we fight for it, protect it, defend it, and then hand it to them with the well-taught lessons of how they in their lifetime must do the same.
In these uncertain economic times, you've got to do whatever you can to save money. One of our biggest expenses can be our cars, especially when unexpected repair bills hit. Not anymore. If you own a vehicle with less than 130,000 miles, is less than 12 years old, has a warranty about to expire, or even no warranty at all, you could stop paying for car repairs. Roadside assistance, towing, and rental coverage are all included. Don't wait for the next repair. Make one free call right now to see if you qualify. If your vehicle is less than 12 years old, has less than 130,000 miles, even if it's out of warranty, paying for car repairs can become a thing of the past. Call us right now and get your car protected before your next repair bill hits. Get protection and no more repair bills. Call 800-696-1030. Again, 800-696-1030. That's 800-696-1030. 800-696-1030.
You are listening to KLRN Radio, where liberty and reason still reign.
All writers are prone prone to becoming so attached to our characters and stories that we struggle to see why a passage may not be working. It takes another set of eyes to help us nurture our writing into full maturity. At Black Wolf Editorial Services, we strive to enable writers to develop and grow, shaping stories into masterpieces that can stand the test of time. Editing services are provided for all genres and all age categories. Services range from critiques of the short story through to line edits of the full-length novel and copy editing for those preparing for publication. We also offer assistance on generating a writer's bio for your websites, as well as help with those book blurbs and promotional material. We won't abandon you to the masses. We want to celebrate with you in your successes. Black Wolf Editorial Services, nurturing your writing into maturity. For a full list of services and prices, visit us at blackwolfeditorial.com.
Individuals and businesses with tax problems, listen carefully. Do you feel like you're losing control over your finances? If you owe over $10,000 in back taxes or have unfiled tax returns, we can help you take back control. The IRS is the largest and most aggressive collection agency in the world, and they can seize your bank account, garnish your paycheck, close your business, and file criminal charges. Take control of your tax problems now by calling the experts at Tax Mediation Services and take advantage of the Fresh Start program and new laws that may allow us to negotiate a settlement for the lowest amount possible. Our team of tax attorneys and enrolled agents can stop collections and get you protected so you can take control of your financial future. Tax Mediation Services is accredited by the Better Business Bureau. Call now for a free case review and a price protection guaranteed quote.
Call Tax Mediation Services now at 800-610-9050. That's 800-610-9050. 800-610-9050.
KLRN Radio has advertising rates available. We have rates to fit almost any budget. Contact us at advertising@klrnradio.com.
This is Slickery Trigger for Rebel Road Tactical. With proper care and feeding, your pistol will be ready when you need it, there to save your life. Shouldn't your gear be that good? Whether you need a holster for comfortable everyday carry or a tough-as-nails holster for your next training course, Rebel Road Tactical has what you need. Check us out on the web at rebelroadtactical.com.
Tired of paying outrageous prices for Viagra? Well, we have great news for you. Now you can finally get Viagra at huge discounts. Healthy Man allows you to save up to $500 on Viagra. Why pay U.S. pharmacy prices of $15 per pill or more when you can get Viagra for less than $3 a pill? Call today and get 40 Viagra pills for only $99. This can cost as much as $600 at your local pharmacy. You can't afford not to call us. If you want Viagra at the lowest prices, never pay $15 a pill pharmacy prices again. Get Viagra for less than $3 a pill. Call 1-800-516-7602 today and save up to $500 and get 40 pills for just $99. Healthy Man is fast, easy, and affordable. Operators are waiting at 1-800-516-7602 to take your call right now. Call 1-800-516-7602. That's 1-800-516-7602. Again, 1-800-516-7602.
Is debt beating you down? You need discipline. You need the Debt Ninja. If you've been caught in a financial trap and need to be set free, then you need the Debt Ninja. Want to stop those harassing collection calls? Start saving thousands in interest and fees and get out of debt fast? Then you need to call the Debt Ninja. The Debt Ninja will find the best companies across the country that will help you consolidate all your bills into one easy payment, reduce your payments by 30 to 50%, and get you out of debt fast. If you have unsecured debt of $10,000 or more, such as credit cards, loans, or medical bills, call the Debt Ninja for a free 15-minute consultation.
Call 800-826-1246. 800-826-1246. That's 800-826-1246. Call today.
The Debt Ninja.
It's time to hear the truth about America's biggest challenges. You're listening to America Off the Rails with your host, Rick Robinson.
Listen, folks, I'm here to tell you our political system is broken. The two-party system is dead. They have become one and the same.
Keep on doing what you do, Rick. You're my favorite host. Favorite host.
This is always the killer, the one that just destroys that never Trump argument. Hillary Clinton will fill the Supreme Court with liberals. She'll also appoint federal judges with a liberal bent to them.
I don't feel no ways tired. I come too far from where I started from. Don't let anybody tell you that it's corporations and businesses that create jobs.
Arrogant, sanctimonious, self-righteous, sabotaging Trump.
Everybody's got to be covered. This is an un-Republican thing for me to say, because a lot of times they say, no, the lower 25%, they can't afford. I am going to take care of everybody. I don't care if it costs me votes or not. Everybody's going to be taken care of, much better than they're taken care of now. The government's going to pay for it, but we're going to save so much money on the other side. ISIS is honoring President Obama. He is the founder of ISIS. He's the founder of ISIS. Written by a nice reporter. Now the poor guy, you got to see this guy. Oh, I don't know what I said. I don't remember. He's going like, I don't remember. Maybe that's what I said.
What realized is that the Bill Kristols of the world, the never Trump people, they were just never serious. They never had any kind of ground game. They never had an actual candidate they could pick.
And in a surprising and disturbing move today, the Libertarian vice presidential candidate just agreed that rifles are weapons of mass destruction and people on the terror watch list should not be allowed to purchase guns. So in other words, the party of freedom is liberty for me but not for thee. Go figure.
Compromise where you can. Where you can't, don't. Even if everyone is telling you that something wrong is something right. Even if the whole world is telling you to move, it is your duty to plant yourself like a tree.
All right, hello everybody. This is America Off the Rails. I'm your host Rick Robinson, and this is the episode that will be officially airing on September 30th, 2016. It's actually also live at just a few minutes past the hour of 10 Central on September 29th. I have a guest with me this evening. You may remember him from the roundtable we did on Monday. We have Jackson Richmond with us today. We're going to spend some time maybe slowing things down, backing things up a little bit in regards to the debate, and then we're going to see where the rest of the night takes us. So for those of you that are listening to us live, make sure you get over to the chat room. For those of you listening tomorrow, you can still hang out in the chat. Sadly, I still have a day job for the moment, so I will not be able to join you. But, you know, I've seen a few of you in there talking, chatting, hanging out while I'm broadcasting my show, so I appreciate that. And at this point, I'm going to go ahead and bring the guest over, and we're going to get started. Good evening, Mr. Richmond. How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you, Rick?
I should say technically good morning since this show will be airing twice, but hey, how you doing, brother?
Still doing well, whether it's night or day.
Well, you know, I'd like to say the same thing, but this whole mess our country is in is just more than a little disturbing. So instead of going straight into the topics of the day, I thought we would actually back things up a little bit. I want to get your take on the debates. Did anything change for you? Did anybody say anything that stuck out for you? Were there any game-changing moments for you, or are you still pretty much in the same boat you were in before the debate, now after the debate?
Well, for starters, I'm still in the same boat. I'm still in the never Trump or Hillary camp. Also, it is what I expected it to be. It was a mudslinger, and I don't feel like Trump was on the offensive most of the night. I felt like he was mostly on the defensive, and Hillary played him like a violin. I mean, playing Trump to her own rhythm, beat, insert any musical analogy you want. She was in control. Trump was all over the place. And at the end of the day, Hillary won.
You know, and as much as it pains me to say this, I actually agree with you in a lot of ways. I have to say, honestly, I mean, I've been never Trump for a while. I don't know if you and I have talked much since the debates and everything got into full swing. for the primaries. I know we were hanging out at CPAC, but we never really got a chance to talk too much because we were running around like crazy people trying to do the jobs that they sent us there to do. But so anyway, so all the way back to the beginning, back when he first announced, I have to admit that for about a month, I was actually pretty squarely in the Trump camp. I hadn't bought a ticket to the train yet, but I liked the fact that he was telling people exactly what he thought. I liked the fact that he was starting to beat them up on the debate stages, etc. And really, the only thing that really started slowly making me realize that this is probably not a good idea is the fact that the man doesn't seem to have an off switch, and he doesn't seem to know when to quit. And he also gets in this, what I like to call a berserker mode, where once he's designated a target, he does nothing but go after that target relentlessly, no matter what. And it doesn't matter if it's somebody on the same side as him or somebody that's on a different side as him. If he views them as an enemy, as far as he's concerned, it's his job to destroy them. And the sad thing is he's done just that, and he's done it with the Republican Party. At this point, the entire Republican Party is basically in a shambles. What used to be the party of liberty and freedom is now the party of I'm mad as hell and I'm not going to take it anymore. And they have also become a group that seems to be more easily aligned with bigots and racists. And it's just a sad day for me to look at the Republican Party and go, all these people that I said were wrong for all these years when they talked about what the Republican Party was, and I said, no, that's not actually what we stand for. That's great that now this entire group of people seems to have single-handedly proved me wrong.
Well, look, there are extremists on both sides of the aisle. Also, you mentioned CPAC. I was talking to Jim Garrity of National Review at that bar where we met each other, and I told him that last year I had this inkling that there would be divide within the Republican Party between the moderates and the conservatives, but little did I think there would be this populist implosion led by Donald Trump. And Garrity said both parties are imploding, and he's right. Both the Democrats and Republicans are self-destructing, and we're seeing it right in front of our eyes. The Democrats have nominated a career political crook in Hillary Clinton, and the Republicans have nominated someone who's not even conservative in Donald Trump. And I think we have to wait till after the election to see what happens. If Hillary wins, yeah, it's going to suck, but she'll only last 4 years, in which the GOP, if it can get its act together, will be able to reincarnate and hopefully nominate a conservative in 2020. And also, I'm looking forward to the day that Jonah Goldberg, John Podhoretz, and those that are still in the conservative camp, in the Never Trump or Hillary camp, who will bash Hannity, Laura Ingraham, and those who fell for Trump's spell. But let's not get ahead of ourselves and think, oh, the GOP is doomed and we're all of a sudden the party of bigots. Now, let's see what happens after this election. Because we could say the Democrats are the party of racists, having supported the KKK, and that more Republicans than Democrats voted in favor of the 1964 Civil Rights Act. So let's not get ahead of ourselves.
I like your optimism, but I'm not sure I'm still there with you. And you could be right. I mean, after the election, whoever wins. I mean, look, let's face it. At this point, if you are conservative in this country, no matter who wins, at the end of the day, as soon as we figure out and we've tallied up the votes and we've licked our wounds and we've cleared away all the debris, we're going to have tons of work to do, no matter which one of these jabronis gets into the White House, because neither one of them is going to have our best interest at heart, and they've proven that time and time again. Now, again, my whole thing with the debate, you had mentioned that it was a mudslinging contest. I kind of look at it a different way. They put a couple of monkeys in suits and taught them how to fling poo back and forth at each other, and that basically sums up the debates, because that's really all it was. Nobody gave us any substance. Nobody talked about anything important. All they did was talk about how terrible the other person was. Nobody really told us how they were going to fix anything, what their plans were. But if you look at then, and the reason at this point that I'm saying I don't think this is going to be something that the conservative movement, or not necessarily the conservative movement, but the Republican Party is going to be able to recover from, is because for the first time in my lifetime, they are using progressive talking points. They're now talking about giving people paid daycare. When Bernie Sanders recommended the same exact thing, it was crazy. It was stupid. How are we going to pay for it? So Trump comes up with this idea of making it a tax credit attached to the EIC instead and cuts it in half. And all of a sudden, all the conservatives are like, "Oh, this is a great idea." When the actual
also cried foul when Rubio introduced a child tax credit. Also, it's not like the Republicans were always a conservative party. Remember Nixon? Nixon wasn't a conservative. National Review refused to endorse him for president.
Oh, no. I understand the Republican Party has not always been a conservative party. But for the last several decades, it has been the home to conservatism. That's what everybody tells you. When you talk about the word conservatism, GOP and conservatism go hand in hand. That's why, at least lately. And that's why a lot of us that are in the GOP have been horrified watching us slowly start moving away from that. Because, look, I'm going to be honest with you. I've talked to a lot of people that are within your age bracket. The choices that folks have put up for them in this election cycle have turned them off to politics for years. Nobody in your age bracket typically wants to vote for Hillary. Nobody in your age bracket really wants to vote for Trump. So they feel like they don't have very many options, and then they're overlooking at Jill Stein and Gary Johnson.
What you're mentioning is exactly what Kristen Soltis Anderson, notable Republican pollster, said tonight on Fox News, specifically on the record with Brit Hume, that millennials are the biggest demographic that's undecided in this election. They're not enthusiastic about either nominee. So Clinton is going to try to attack Johnson to attract those millennials and be able to climb the edge, so to speak, over Trump and get that narrow victory. Can't get it without millennials. She needs that Obama coalition of millennials.
And I honestly don't think she's going to get it. Look, at one point, and the thing about it is, if you look, at one point, this looked like it was going to be a clear runaway for Clinton. I'm not sure she's going to be able to hold it. She's had too many things that have gone sideways. Now, look, I'm not going to tell you which one I think is worse for the country, because as far as I'm concerned, you might as well flip a coin. Because no matter which one of them gets into the White House, freedom is going to be compromised. There are going to be things that happen that shouldn't inside of each administration. One may be slightly worse than the other in certain respects, but the other is going to be equally as worse in other ways. And that's been my problem all along. We used to try to put up candidates of clear difference. At some point, we started letting the media help us pick our candidates, and once they figured out we were willing to let them do that, they started figuring out ways they could run the table with us. It's how we wound up with McCain. It's how we wound up with Romney, and it is again how we wound up with Trump, because now for 3 cycles they have figured this out.
With McCain and Romney, they're conservative. They're at least an inch conservative. Trump is not a conservative whatsoever.
No, I'm not disagreeing with that point with you. But even when McCain was running, there were more conservative people in there. But people started listening to the media who were propping him up for a reason. The media and the Democratic Party for now 3 cycles has been pulling a rope-a-dope on the American people. They hype up the candidate that they think is going to be the easiest to obliterate. And so far for 2 out of 3 cycles, it's worked. I think it still may work with...
It's the Democratic greatest super PAC, the mainstream media. There's no surprise there.
Well, no, I'm not saying I'm surprised. I'm just saying, what I'm saying I'm surprised about is that we as conservatives continually fall for it. That's what I'm saying I'm surprised about. Because
look, if Rubio or Kasich or even Cruz was the nominee, this would have been over, and the GOP would have won with all of Hillary's troubles. But no, in the 1 year that the GOP could easily take back the White House, they nominated the one candidate Hillary can defeat in November. Absolutely tragic and disgraceful.
Well, let's look at it logically for a second. Let's put the shoe on the other foot. Let's pretend that Monday night there was a debate between Cruz and Hillary. Cruz would have obliterated her because he could have pointed out everything that she's done wrong as Secretary of State. Donald Trump can't even keep up with the things that he's done wrong, much less keep up with the things that she's done wrong. And after his debate performance, I fully understand why Donald Trump refused to go toe-to-toe with Ted Cruz. Ted Cruz would have destroyed him on the stage and made him look like an idiot.
Yep.
And I know everybody that's listening right now is like, oh my God, another Cruz supporter going off the rails and talking about how great Cruz is. Look, Cruz wasn't even like my sixth choice. But at the end of the day, when it came down to just him and Trump and Kasich, when Trump was using Kasich as a wedge, because that's what that was, folks. There's no denying that at this point. There is now confirmation that Kasich was originally shopped the Veep position, and he was done so in a phone conversation with one of Trump's sons, and there were things that came to light during that conversation that Kasich wasn't comfortable with, and Kasich then shortly thereafter dropped out of the race, and at that point, that was it. There was still a chance that Cruz could have stayed in it and maybe turned things around if Donald Trump had not tucked tail and said, nope, I don't need to debate anymore. I've already cleaned the clock of every single one of these people up here. And nothing could be further from the truth. Because when you've got 12, 14, 15, 16 people all vying for attention, what happens is they target the biggest guy in the room, which at that time was Donald Trump, because he was the one with the biggest name recognition. So they would get a couple of shots off at him, and then they would spend the rest of the time trying to knock each other off the pedestals, and all Donald Trump had to do every so often was get in a decent one-liner or zinger to hold the public's attention. And that's how he got to where he was. And he knew that going in. He's been a showmaster of reality TV now for a very long time. And that's basically what he's done, is use the debate cycles as his own political reality TV show. He worked the crowds, he worked the rooms, he knew what to do, he knew when to dodge, he knew when to duck, and he knew when to leave. And that's exactly what he did, and that's how he got here. And that's why he came so hard after Cruz and went so hard to try to discredit Cruz and get people to start talking badly about Cruz, because he knew if it ever got to the point where he and Cruz were on the same debate stage, he was going to get obliterated. Because Ted Cruz, whether anybody wants to admit it or not, is a really good public speaker. I've heard him speak live in person. He's amazing. I have heard him recite facts word for word, because the man has the ability to remember everything that he's ever heard. Now, you can't tell me that with someone like Donald Trump, who changes his story depending on who he's talking to, day in and day out, and doesn't even know what the true definition of the word truth is, that somebody that has that ability would not have been able to decimate him on a debate stage. And Donald Trump knew that, and that's why he vilified Cruz. That's why he went after Cruz's family. That's why he went after Cruz's wife. That's why he started spouting off about Enquirer articles that were pointless. Because let's face it, yes, there's all this stuff about the National Enquirer, and supposedly they've been right 9 times out of 10 times. If they start talking about politicians that have had affairs, it turns out to be true, etc. If that was actually true, they'd still be talking about it today. They're not.
The only reason National Enquirer is even relevant is because they talk about scandal. Other than that, they're garbage. That aside, there's just too many candidates. And the problem was when Trump was taking control of the polls, those other candidates were splitting up the anti-Trump vote. And they weren't dropping one by one like dominoes and be like, okay, who should take on Trump so we don't have this populist bigot as the nominee. Instead, they were only self-interested. That was like Kasich. And as much as Kasich was my second choice for president, he should have dropped out and realized, okay, this isn't my time. This isn't working out. I need to withdraw from the race. But no, he selfishly decided to stay in.
Well, I mean, honestly, I think he was requested to stay in at the request of the Trump campaign. Look, I'm still in a bit of a quandary here, because I honestly believe that we've been set up. I still cannot get past the fact that Donald Trump had a phone conversation with Bill Clinton before he decided to run.
I always had this inkling that it was set up by the Clintons. But the thing is, well, now that Trump actually has a chance to defeat Hillary, I mean, that's karma being a B word. I mean, and you can arrest Hillary, and then, I mean, it's like the dog coming back to bite you, or whatever analogy applies.
Well, no, and I agree with that.
Most of the GOP primaries were open, which allowed for there to be sabotage. I mean, did he know those intricacies?
I don't necessarily think he knew enough of the intricacies, because let's face it, his children didn't even know enough about the process to change their status so they could vote for him. So I don't necessarily think that he was the mastermind behind a lot of that, but he didn't necessarily have to be. I think I think at some point it changed for him. Because if you'll notice, every so often when he was getting really, really high up in the polls, I don't think he was ever supposed to be the guy that was standing on the stage with Hillary Clinton. I think the plan was to be and to assume the role that Kasich played. The blocker, the guy standing there taking just enough of the votes that whoever's left will not be able to beat Hillary Clinton. And I think his plan was to be that guy. Because if you notice, anytime he started getting really, really high up in the polls, he did something outrageously stupid. And nobody called him.
I don't think he would go after the Clinton family and mention Vince Foster, and I don't feel like he would go that far. If you're set up, you're not going to attack someone's family.
See, that goes back to the fact that I have some really weird friends, and I have one of them in particular that we go after each other on purpose and try to get under each other's skin. I think these two are twisted enough that they may have that type of friendship. And look, at this point, I'm not sure he's pulling punches anymore, because I think it started as a joke. I think it started as a plan to make sure that Hillary got to the White House. But at the same time, I think something changed for him, because no matter what he did, he couldn't stop his momentum. He was trying to stop it on purpose there for a while. There's no way you can tell me otherwise, because anytime the media ever shifted any focus to her, the first thing that he did was run out, start saying and jumping up and down, saying something completely stupid and getting the spotlight right back on him. I think a lot of that was by design. I don't think he was ever supposed to get where he is now, and I think that's why there have been all of these false starts and shuffling of positions and changing of personnel, etc., because at some point this was supposed to die out on its own, and then he realized, hey, I really do kind of have a shot at this, and this has been something that I've been thinking about since the 80s. So I think at some point this went from, hey, I'm just going to be your whipping boy to make sure you get into the White House, to what the hell, we've got a chance to do this, we might as well do it. So I think for him at some point something legitimately did change. I think, unfortunately, though, a lot of whatever wind he had in his sails, I don't think the debate did him many favors. Because at the end of the day, he did exactly what everybody thought he wasn't going to do, and he didn't go after her in the ways that mattered. He didn't turn things around on her. Like, look, I don't like the fact that in 2003 he said one thing about the Iraq War, and now he's saying something else. But the simple fact of the matter is, as soon as she brought that up, he could have said, look, that was 2003, I know a lot more about it now than I did then. And first and second of all, I wasn't a politician at that point. I didn't vote for it. You did. All I did was tell somebody on TV that I supported the idea, and I didn't even really give it a full-throated endorsement.
Rather than beat the bush, I beat around the bush. I absolutely agree with that.
But that's what they expected him to do, and he didn't do it.
That's not what he's doing. Just Trump. He's a reality in business mogul. I mean, what do you expect? And do I think he can be an engine to pass Republican and conservative things, even though Trump's not conservative himself? Yeah, but it's not a risk I want to take, and that's why I'm still in the never Trump camp. I think we can survive 4 years of Clinton as long as we have a GOP-controlled Congress, and at the end of the day, Clinton will keep digging the Democratic Party's grave, and if the GOP can get its act together and nominate a conservative 2020, we can take back the White House. It sucks that it didn't happen this year, but you know what? Time to regroup.
Yeah, I think, unfortunately, brother, you're looking at some things through some really staunchly rose-colored glasses, because I don't see, at this point, you're starting
to... We can't go third party, Rick. I mean, where are the conservatives going to go? Do you know how nearly impossible it is to form that third party and get recognition?
I understand that. I understand that it's an impossible thing, but is it not time to start thinking about doing the impossible when your whole party shoved you out the airlock?
What would you do if you can't do a third party? Well, then you're just going to have to keep fighting within the GOP.
Who says we? That's the thing, Jackson, and we need to take a break real quick, but I want to bring this up because you sound like a lot of the other people that I've been talking to lately. They keep saying, there's no way we could do a third party, there's no way we could do a third party, there's no way we could do a third party. This would have been the one and only chance that we probably could have done a third party, because for the first time in my lifetime... But for the first time in my lifetime, Jackson, 66% of people, when these polls first started getting formulated, didn't want either one of them. If those 66% could have formulated behind a candidate, this would have been over.
Like who, Romney? I wanted Romney to run, don't get me wrong, but the thing is, would Romney have built up enough momentum, and like what would have happened within the GOP? I mean, it would have.
Well, no, I'm not saying anything about Romney. I think the Libertarian Party. I think the Libertarian Party shot itself in the foot. They had a really strong chance at actually bringing a lot of disenfranchised conservatives over to their side of the argument if they would have put up Austin Peterson. But they chose not to do that.
As well known of a name as Gary Johnson.
It does. This isn't a.
Steve Wynn, and you need
this
funding.
isn't.
Steve Wynn is a billionaire, one of the wealthiest people in the world. You have to be centrist. I feel like that's where Johnson is heading.
Okay, so Okay, so are you going to keep talking over me on my own show, brother? Because I got a mute button. I can use it.
I didn't know you were speaking.
No, it's all right. I'm just giving you a hard time. But no, I'm just saying, look, what I was saying at this point is I know that Austin Peterson didn't have the name recognition, but let's face it, Gary Johnson doesn't have a very positive name recognition. He's known as the Colorado Brownie Boy. So I'm not sure that name recognition in this instance is actually helping things. And Austin Peterson, if anything, would have been a lot more moderate than even Gary Johnson in a lot of ways because he's pro-life across the board. There are even a few things that Austin Peterson had said that I wasn't necessarily completely on board with. But at the same time, we had to do something. But the issue is the Libertarian Party decided that they didn't want conservatives. So that's why they did things on their terms. They brought out Gary Johnson, who was basically somebody whose biggest thing is marijuana reform and a few other little things here and there. And then they brought out his vice presidential candidate nominee. And between the two of them, they have even been using liberal talking points. They've talked about the no-fly list becoming the no-buy list. Gary Johnson has flirted with the carbon tax thing. I have issues with all of that because I thought the Libertarian Party was supposed to be the party of get the government out of my business, and yet they're talking about getting the government right back into my business. So, I mean, I honestly don't know where we go from this point, and I hope that maybe your ideas and your mindset is not as rose-colored glasses as I'm seeing, as it appears to be to me. And I'm not trying to say that you're wrong. I'm saying that we have a difference of opinion because I don't really see the Republican Party being able to recover from this because Donald Trump has been running around like a bull in a china shop, and there's really not very many conservatives actually left in the party because we were basically told to get the hell out.
Where do we go?
I don't know where we go, but I know that nobody wants us, so why would we stay? The Democrats don't want us, the Libertarians don't want us, and apparently the Republicans don't want us. So your guess is as good as mine as to where we go, but it doesn't change the fact that nobody seems to want us. All right, so we got to take a really quick break. We're already long. We're into the bottom of the hour. When we come back, we're going to keep talking debates 2016 and probably shift over to some news stories because there have been lots of things going on that I think Jackson's probably going to want to weigh in on. So we'll be right back here in just a moment. You are listening to America Off the Rails, a special live late night edition, and also re-airing in our usual morning time slot. Don't go away. We'll be right back.
Stay tuned. Things are going to get real interesting. You're listening to the Spark Radio Network.
You are listening to KLRN Radio, where liberty and reason still reign.
All writers are prone to becoming so attached to our characters and stories that we struggle to see why a passage may not be working. It takes another set of eyes to help us nurture our writing to full maturity. At Black Wolf Editorial Services, we strive to enable writers to develop and grow, shaping stories into masterpieces that can stand the test of time. Editing services are provided for all genres and all age categories. Services range from critiques of the short story through to the line edits of the full-length novel and copy editing for those preparing for publication. We also offer assistance on generating a writer's bio for your website, as well as help with those book blurbs and promotional material. We won't abandon you to the masses. We want to celebrate with you in your successes. Black Wolf Editorial Services, nurturing your writing into maturity. For a full list of services and prices, visit us at blackwolfeditorial.com.
Individuals and businesses with tax problems, listen carefully. Do you feel like you're losing control over your finances? If you owe over $10,000 in back taxes or have unfiled tax returns, we can help you take back control. The IRS is the largest and most aggressive collection agency in the world, and they can seize your bank account, garnish your paycheck, close your business, and file criminal charges. Take control of your tax problems now by calling the experts at Tax Mediation Services and take advantage of the Fresh Start program and new laws that may allow us to negotiate a settlement for the lowest amount possible. Our team of tax attorneys and enrolled agents can stop collections and get you protected so you can take control of your financial future. Tax Mediation Services is accredited by the Better Business Bureau. Call now for a free case review and a price protection guaranteed quote.
Call Tax Mediation Services now at 800-610-9050. That's 800-610-9050. 800-610-9050.
KLRN Radio has advertising rates available. We have rates to fit almost any budget. Contact us at advertising@klrnradio.com.
This is Slickery Trigger for Rebel Road Tactical. With proper care and feeding, your pistol will be ready when you need it, there to save your life. Shouldn't your gear be that good? Whether you need a holster for comfortable everyday carry or a tough-as-nails holster for your next training course, Rebel Road Tactical has what you need. Check us out on the web at rebelroadtactical.com.
Tired of paying outrageous prices for Viagra? Well, we have great news for you. Now you can finally get Viagra at huge discounts. Healthy Man allows you to save up to $500 on Viagra. Why pay U.S. pharmacy prices of $15 per pill or more when you can get Viagra for less than $3 a pill? Call today and get 40 Viagra pills for only $99. This can cost as much as $600 at your local pharmacy. You can't afford not to call us. If you want Viagra at the lowest prices, never pay $15 a pill pharmacy prices again. Get Viagra for less than $3 a pill. Call 1-800-516-7602 today and save up to $500 and get 40 pills for just $99. Healthy Man is fast, easy, and affordable. Operators are waiting at 1-800-516-7602 to take your call right now. Call 1-800-516-7602. That's 1-800-516-7602. Again, 1-800-516-7602.
All right, welcome back, folks. We're back. We're here. We're live. We're going to change gears. I think we've kind of, in between the shows that I've done all this debate talking on, I think I've talked about it for about 8 hours now. I think I'm about debate talked out. So we're going to change gears a little bit. Jackson's the host, so I'm going to let you pick. Where are we going next? Or the guest. I'm the host. I'm tired. What can I say? Where do you want to go next, brother? Pick something.
Let's go to the 9/11 bill.
Yes, let's. So you'd mentioned off the break that you were kind of torn on that one, so why don't you go ahead and give folks your thoughts, because they hear me talk enough.
Yeah, so no, I think it was justice for the 9/11 families, but at the same time, I do feel like it was a political ploy in that if a member of Congress were to vote against it, it would be as if they're voting against the victims of 9/11. And also, people are misinformed about that, and that really ticks me off, in that, oh my god, now any country can sue the U.S. No, this only has to do with U.S.-Saudi relations with regards to 9/11. This has nothing to do with any other country. It doesn't have to do with Iraq, doesn't have to do with Afghanistan. It's only regarding the regarding the Saudi government. So, I mean, will the Saudis show up to court? Probably not. But you give justice to the 9/11 families, but at the same time, you do this as a political ploy before the election. So, I mean, as Charles Krauthammer said tonight on Special Report, and of course I usually agree with my inspiration, it was mostly pointless. I mean, yeah, you got justice for the 9/11 families, but at the same time, was more of a point exercise. You know, and that, I mean, the Saudis aren't going to show up to court.
Well, no, I agree.
What was your take, Rick?
No, I agree. They're likely not going to show up. Now, you and I are going to disagree on one point on the face of it, and no, I'm not saying that this is going to happen instantaneously or it's going to instantly open us up to all kinds of things, but this is one of those areas where I really don't think that anybody thought through the unintended consequences. Because no, it doesn't mean that the American public and the American country are going to be immediately open to lawsuits by other countries. But this is going to set a legal precedence. And it's going to set a legal precedence that other countries will start being able to mirror. And there are plenty of countries that feel like we have done things in an incorrect way. We have done things that were terrible. We have done things that should have never happened. And now that we have opened that box, maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, maybe not a year from now, but at some point they will be able to craft a similar piece of legislation and turn the gun back on us. And that's one of the reasons why I've been looking at this as everybody's been talking about it, and looking at it a lot like with Social Security and a lot of the other things that were started with the best of intentions. You don't know what it's going to morph into 5, 10, 15, 20, 30 years down the road, and I think this was a bad idea because it sets a very bad precedent.
So you side with one of the rare times you side with President Obama.
This is probably the only time since he's been in office that I have sided with President Obama, and it literally makes me nauseous that I actually agree with Old Barry Big Ears. But it doesn't change the fact that I agree with Old Barry Big Ears.
What did you call him?
Old Barry Big Ears.
What did you call him?
Old Barry Big Ears. It's been my nickname for him for about 9 years now.
Oh my God! Did you trademark that?
It goes back to the picture of the high school or the college ID that was going around that somebody was putting around all over the place, and I still don't even know if it was photoshopped or whatever. But it had a picture of a very young. Barry Satoro, I think was the name that was on the ID, and he had the afro with the ears sticking out like 4 miles and the cheesy grin. I'm like, oh my God, he looks, and that was kind of my nickname for him ever since, was Old Barry Big Ears. I haven't used it often, but this is one of the times I felt like it fit because I actually feel sick to my stomach because for once I actually agree with him, and I never thought I would. But yeah, so that's my thoughts on that. And again, more of a chest poke.
You weren't someone who was on the left like me and then switched to the right, so hey.
Well,
the U.S. has taken the court before. I mean, we've been taken to the ICJ over Guatemala, if I'm not mistaken. I mean, we've been taken to the World Trade Organization. The Palestinian Authority has been sued in New York. I mean, it's not the first time that the U.S. has tried to interact with another outside entity through the legal system.
Yeah, and I understand all of that, and I understand on the face of it, again, for the short term, this isn't going to be a drastic change. It isn't necessarily anything new. But again, I think it sets a very bad precedent because of specifically what they were going after this country for. Because at this point, we're basically holding a country responsible for the actions of a few. That's a problem for me. Because how many, I mean, look at it from this perspective. How many people do we know have left America as U.S. citizens, gone over and trained as Hamas, ISIS, and all of these other groups, and then have gone over to Israel and done God knows what while they were there or in all of these other countries?
Very few.
Very few, yes, you're right. But the thing with that is, with this now becoming legal precedence, this gives the ability, if somebody thinks it far enough through, to craft similar legislation and get it passed as a law, another country could hold us accountable for those few of us that have left our borders, gone overseas, and inflicted mass casualties all in the name of ISIS and Allah. And that's what I'm talking about.
You think I could be arrested for that, even though I didn't commit the crime?
No, but I'm saying the country itself could be sued over it and have to pay money that we don't have because we're already in debt. That's in essence.
Would you show up to court? Probably not.
And I understand that it would be a default judgment, and then it's probably not going to be worth the paper that it's printed on. But when you start getting to a point where you allow arguments like this to actually be taken into court, and there are more and more instances of it becoming a paper tiger argument, they're going to find a way to back it up eventually. And that's another thing that concerns me, because you're right. The first few times it's tried, not really going to have any teeth. It's going to basically be a non-binding resolution. This court has found you guilty for failure to appear, therefore you're responsible for blah, 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 and you're going to get a black mark on your credit rating, which in and of itself is a bad thing, because we're already starting to take black marks on our credit rating. So, I mean, there are any number of ways that this stuff could pan out, and I could be completely overreacting. This could be something that never turns into anything. But having studied history as much as I have,
to look at the events that happen in the future. I think you have to look at what transpires in the future. I don't think we can jump to conclusions.
Well, I'm not necessarily jumping to conclusions though, Jackson, because I'm looking at things. I'm looking at things that have happened in the past and all of the unintended consequences from those things. Like the Social Security stuff that was all started for the best of intentions, that has now in and of itself become a Ponzi scheme administered by our government, which if anybody but the government was doing it would be considered illegal. But it's the government, so it's not illegal, and we're still stuck buying into it whether we want to or not. That was all started with the best of intentions.
The care of the elderly is a consensual idea. It's just that nowadays government has become has gone to a point where it's now insolvent. So you have to look at the times. I think it's comparing apples and oranges, the 9/11 bill and Social Security. You have to look at the times.
I mean, it's not really, though, because we're talking about the unintended consequences. The unintended consequences of the Social Security bill is they've made entire generations dependent on the pittance that they've been paying into their checks that aren't even going to be there for people like me when or if I finally am ever able to retire. If something doesn't change, the money's not going to be there. But I still have no choice but to pay into it. When in reality, if I was left to my own devices and started at age 18 and put $20 a paycheck into a savings account and simply left it there, by the time I was able to retire, I would have over $1 million in that savings account. But the government continues to have access to more of my money than that per paycheck, and yet even if I get it, I'm going to be receiving, if I'm lucky, somewhere around $700 a month for the few years that I may or may not be able to retire, assuming that the money is even still there. So that's what I'm referring to, is we need to look at other things the government has done with the best of intentions and look at the unintended consequences that have cropped up from those. Because if there were unintended...
Absolutely, Social Security does need to be reformed. Absolutely. No doubt about it. I mean, that has been discussed during the election. I think most notably by Chris Christie, who said we need to increase the retirement age. You know, Americans are living longer. We need to increase the age, and we need to reform the system. That those making over $1 million, they don't need that Social Security. We need to make some sacrifices.
Well, look,
kind of mentioning what you,
let me just put this in the best terms possible. Let me tell you a way that we could make Social Security really solvent really fast. First of all, you do all the things that Chris Christie was just talking about. You extend out the retirement age, because let's face it, when that age was originally set, it was actually estimated that about 1% of the population that was receiving that money would live probably 2 to 3 years after they started receiving it. Most people were dying many, many years before. So that's the first thing. We need to extend out that age so we still have as many people as possible pushing that wagon. We then need to make sure that people that have that verifiable incomes of over $1 million a year, yes, they're still required to pay into it, but they don't necessarily receive anything out of it because they don't need it. The other thing that we could do to make Social Security solvent and fix a lot of the other problems is quit giving our politicians retirement packages that pay them hundreds of thousands of dollars a year for the rest of their lives because they don't need it, because they're already millionaires. Once they're out of office, they don't need these gold ticket healthcare packages anymore either because they're already millionaires. If we were to simply do those 4 things, Social Security would probably run forever, because look at all of the money that gets wasted by these politicians for years upon years upon years after they're out of office, and we're still paying millionaires hundreds of thousands of dollars a year in retirement for a job of public service. This job didn't even used to have a salary. They were given a daily stipend while they were traveling, and then they made a few pennies while they were in session for 3-4 weeks out of the year. The rest of the time they were home with their constituents. There are ways to fix this. The problem is nobody wants to talk about how we actually fix it. Because if we actually took the time to allow ourselves to fix what was broken with the government would be needed less, and the government has to be needed. That's the problem that we find ourselves in today, because we now have two parties. That we have one, the Democrats, which used to be the ice cream party, and they still are. But now you have the Republicans that have become the new and improved ice cream party, because now Trump is putting out tweets about we're going to grant every single possible wish to every single American person. Okay, so I want my unicorn that farts pixie dust, and I want it now, Mr. Trump. Make it happen.
Oh, Rick. Do you have a unicorn that picks up pixie dust?
Well, I mean, I want one. I mean, why not? I mean, come on. Can you imagine how cool it would be to ride into work on a unicorn? I mean, come on.
Rick Robinson, everyone. Oh, I'm going to go to bed laughing at that. Oh, my God. Unicorn that picks up pixie dust. You know what? I would like a waffle maker. A self-making waffle machine. Too bad that can't fall from the sky. But anyway, going back to Social Security.
Self-making waffle machine, that's easy. Get a wife.
Oh, Rick. Would you be for privatizing Social Security? I wouldn't mind.
I wouldn't necessarily mind giving folks the option. I don't think we should
force money in my banking account.
Yeah, I don't think we should. I don't think we should force them either way. But yeah, I think they should have the option of, if they wanted to opt out and instead put the money into their own savings account, they should have that ability, because again, the same thing that my parents told me and I told my children, and now I'm looking back going, God, why didn't I listen to my parents? Because I'm 43 years old, and if I had started that little trick of put $20 back and just leave it there and let it just sit there. Because, see, the thing that banks don't tell you is once you get your balances to a certain point, they start putting your money in what's called a high-yield investment account. So that's when you really start making the money back off of what you've put in there, because for the first few years, you're not getting much off of it, but you're basically just building up a nice little nest egg. But
also, there's the Roth IRA and all these other accounts where you can invest your money and let it grow.
Well, yeah, I mean, but in reality, you can still do the same thing through a savings account, and it's safer.
Parents have been still that.
But yeah, I mean, so anyway. So I mean, yeah, I think people should have the option, but I don't think the government's ever going to give them that option, because there will be too many people that will opt out, and then there will be people that didn't because they were afraid that it wouldn't work, or they wouldn't be able to control themselves well enough to keep the money, and then there'll be even less people contributing to the pie. And that's what the government is ultimately afraid of, because at this point we already have less people pushing the cart than we have writing in it.
And you're not going to be losing the entire pie. You'll still be able to retain some of it. The thing is, you won't be piggy banking off it whenever you want. You'll be able to, have a responsible, as much as that may be an overstatement, a responsible stream of Social Security money, Have it taxed at 2% while people get to keep most of it, but the government can take some of it and to spend it, and not have an unlimited amount of Social Security funds, if that makes sense.
Well, no, and I understand that the whole argument with that makes sense, but that's not what the government wants.
Not even a tax it. They love taxing, though.
Well, yeah, but, I don't know. I mean, like I said, there's probably ways they could make it work to do both, but the simple fact of the matter is they don't really want to do both, because, again, if they could really figure out a way to fix the things that are broken, we wouldn't need them anymore, and they need us to need them. But believe it or not, sir, we are officially out of time.
Would you run for president, Rick?
Would I run for president? Nobody would vote for me, so it would be pointless. But yeah, I'd love to run for president. I could be one of those like 1,600 other crazy people that you see at all the political conventions. They're like, "Here, have my card. I'm running for president." Except I'd probably run as a Pastafarian president and run around with a colander on my head. It'd be great. But so anyway, believe it or not, sir, we are officially out of time. So usually, what I like to have the guests do for the last couple of minutes I have them on is remind folks where they can see you when you're not on air with me.
See me at Jackson Richmond on Twitter, at Jackson Richmond, JCKSONRICHMAN, no underscore, just at Jackson Richmond, JCKSONRICHMAN. I'm also on Facebook, where you can follow me. And that's pretty much where my kingdom is.
And where I know you are currently doing a radio show. Where do you do that at?
At GW's radio station. It's called Hear the Press, every Sunday from 3 to 4 p.m. We don't have a show this Sunday, but the following Sunday we will. It's at gwradio.com.
And if he ever gets me the replay links, I'll actually be running it over here. Just giving you a hard time. All right. Also, he's being a little modest. You also write for a few publications. Why don't you tell folks about that real quick? Or not. Did I lose you?
Sure, I write for Red Alert Politics, American Action News, and New Voices magazine, which primarily targets Jewish college students. I've also written for the Weekly Standard and the Daily Caller.
See, now you're just showing off. Just playing. All right. Anyway, folks, this has been a special late night live edition of America Off the Rails. For those of you listening live, thank you for taking the time to tune in. Whether you listen to us here on a home station, KLRNradio.com, or Red Nation Rising Radio, AMFM247.com, or Spreaker, Stitcher, SoundCloud, iHeart, iTunes, Blueberry, Pocket Cast, FM Player, or God, there's so many I can't even remember them all anymore. Whether you're choosing to listen live or Memorex, thank you very much for taking the time to listen. Do hope you guys enjoy the rest of your very late evening or the rest of your midday, because this will probably be the, I guess this will be the the third hour tomorrow. This would actually be airing in the 1 o'clock to 2 o'clock Eastern time frame. So, if you're listening then, hope you guys enjoy the rest of your afternoon. If you're listening now, have a great night. I will be back with you live tomorrow night or today, depending on when you're listening, for the Robinson and Wright Show here on KLNRradio.com every Friday at 11 p.m. Eastern. We're out. Have a great night. Take care. God bless. Don't go away. Well, I guess you got to go away because we're closing up shop for the night. Take care. Bye.
Screw you guys. I'm going home. Later.
Game over, man. It's game over.
No, that was not what I was looking for. Alright, so anyway, it turns out that wasn't what I was looking for after all. So back to the idea of armed people on campus. Look, so you have a handful of teachers, depending on the side of the school, maybe 3 or 4, that go through the training. You can even have them go through training similar to what the police officers actually go through, and make sure that they understand everything that they're about to sign up for, and then make sure they don't tell anybody that they're the ones that have the guns. No students, nobody but the principal needs to know, to be honest. Nobody. Because that way we can change the signs to this is a gun-free zone to there are weapons on this premises, but you don't know who has them, so enter at your own risk if you intend to do harm to our children. That only makes sense. Why is it so difficult for people to understand there's a reason we have a Second Amendment, and it's not about hunting. It is about personal protection. It is about the ability to protect one's family. It is about the ability to protect your community, and ultimately, folks, the part of this that nobody talks about is it is ultimately a last-ditch fail-safe to stop us from succumbing to tyranny. Sorry, I almost said the words wrong there. But it's a last-ditch effort to keep us from succumbing to tyranny. And look, I honestly don't know if we're nearly there. I don't know if I'm just getting old, stubborn, and set in my ways, but I'm looking at what's going on in the news today with everything that we're talking about. I mean, literally, let's just back up for a second. So far, we've talked about the 2 worst candidates ever. We have the UN that's decided that we need to pay reparations for slavery, even though we're the country that ended it. So my recommendation for that would be, how about the UN takes a lot of that money that we've been giving them now, basically since their creation and inception, and they actually start paying back reparations using our money, since they seem to think that that's a good idea. But I bet you they won't, because they're going to keep the money that we've provided them, even though they're the ones saying that we deserve to pay people reparations. Seems pretty fair to me. You get a large chunk of our money. Why don't you use that money so that you can actually be the group that pays the reparations, since you say that we have to? If you're going to do it at all, that's the best way to do it. All right, so, but then there's another story that has come out today, and I'm actually trying to find it again now. Apparently, hang on, give me just a second. I'm going to look it up here. Okay, so this is from downtrend.com. One of the craziest things to come out of the Keith Scott shooting in Charleston, North Carolina is the idea that it is racist for a black police officer to use deadly force on an armed black man. The NAACP, in its infinite wisdom, has come up with a foolproof way around this little problem. According to the organization, black cops are not real black people, so therefore it is racist when they shoot actual black people. The NAACP is not convinced that the Scott shooting was justified despite multiple videos showing that he was armed, even the facts that a gun was recovered from the scene and that Scott was illegally carrying a weapon when police shot him has done nothing to persuade them. On Tuesday, the NAACP made a list of demands to the Charlotte Police Department to ensure black police officers never again shoot and kill threatening armed black men. As reported by WCNC, the organization that supposedly represents black people dropped this bomb. I swear I'm looking to see if this is satire, but I can't find any indication that it is. I've been looking at this since the story came out on Tuesday, because I knew at some point I was going to talk about it, and it would probably be Thursday's show. And I've been looking, and I've been looking, and I've been looking, and I cannot find any indication at all that this is a satirical piece. So it ultimately looks like at this point, unless I've been hoodwinked, and it is possible, I've actually posted satirical pieces before and not realized that they were. I don't know. I mean, even the stories next to it seem to look fairly legitimate. But in this election cycle, it's really hard to tell. I actually posted an article to Twitter Tuesday night that I knew was satire, and I still got lambasted because people were like, "Oh my God, you're using this piece to justify this type of behavior," because it was a piece clearly written by somebody that likes to do satire, and it basically said that Donald Trump wanted to do the remainder of the debates by himself because it was rigged. The scary thing is there were lots of people on both sides that weren't exactly sure it was satire. I was like, I told them, I was like, okay, look, so if you're not sure, then please go look at the name of the person who wrote the article and the fact that right next to their name it actually says they're a comedian. I'm pretty sure it's satire. But there were people that came completely unglued. Now in this one, again, I can't find any reference that it's satire. I hope to God I'm wrong, but it doesn't appear that I am. Actually, there's a link to a potential news story here. This should let me know pretty quickly whether I've been hoodwinked. If it will ever load, that is. Alright, so while we're waiting to see if that ever loads, we're going to go on a little bit further into the story, and if I have to do a retraction, at least I'll be on air when it happens. Many black people who became police officers become blue, not black. In order for you to survive in a police department, you take the police department's ideology. That includes their ways of life and their culture, said an NAACP representative. It doesn't get any clearer than that. The NAACP is saying that becoming a police officer robs a black man of his black essence, that black cops are no longer truly black, and must surrender their black card to the NAACP in the context of the Keith Scott shooting. The statement also implies that black police officers are transformed into racist white killers of innocent black men. So again, still frantically waiting to see if we can find anything that talks about this being satire, and I'm not finding anything. And apparently what I thought was a link to a TV station's article or listing wasn't one. So again, let's just recap how crazy the world is right now. We again have the UN saying that we should be paying reparations. We also have the alt-right going completely crazy within the Trump group. We have Black Lives Matter going completely crazy in the Hillary Clinton group. We have two candidates who spent Monday night flinging poop at one another instead of actually accomplishing anything. We now have the NAACP apparently saying that black people in police uniforms are no longer black people. Sounds scarily like some folks that I've seen on Twitter that have said much the same thing. You know, once a black man puts on the white man's uniform, they're no longer a black man. Doesn't matter if it's the police uniform, doesn't matter if it's the military uniform. To some, it doesn't even matter if it's an IMSA or fire uniform or any type of first responder. They feel once they've done that, that's it. That's it. It's over. End of story. That person is no longer black. Period. End of discussion. And there's nothing anybody can say to tell them otherwise. And it really is just about that simple. It's just craziness that we have gotten here. Alright, so just want to remind everybody on the way out here, because this is going to be an abbreviated episode this week on this show, but for those of you that may be tuning in the middle or you missed the beginning, it'll actually run for a little bit because we do have 3 hours blocked out. There's just not going to be, with trying to do 20 hours of radio a week, there's going to be times when I'm going to fall short. I want to say thanks to everybody who tunes in on a regular basis, whether you're doing it through Stitcher, SoundCloud, Spreaker, AMFM247.com, Red Nation Rising Radio, the Liberty Channel, Blueberry, Pocket Cast. God, the list just keeps going and going and going. At this point, the show's on in more places than I thought we had places, and yet it still continues to grow. Of course, the three favorites for me are iHeartRadio, AMFM 24/7, and Red Nation Rising Radio. Red Nation Rising Radio is actually run by a few friends, and I think it's a great idea. It's a newer concept. I'm curious to see if it's going to continue to grow and build. AMFM 24/7 has been around now for a while, and they've actually become a broadcaster-supported and owned station. I actually now have shares in that particular station, so I'm kind of getting in on the ground floor of a lot of these new ideas, and I'm curious to see how they're all going to play out. And the same thing with KLRN Radio, the station that I'm actually business partner owner with. And then, of course, there's my network, the Spark Radio Network, which actually syndicates a lot of our programming that goes out to multiple places. Up until recently, we had a lot of folks that were on terrestrial radio. We've kind of pulled back on that a little bit, not because we're giving it up, but just because at this point we're reworking the concept. Because when we launch back to terrestrial again, we want to be able to do it on multiple fronts. So we have been looking into groups that offer syndication. Unfortunately, I was approached by one a few weeks ago that actually decided, because I hadn't been very ardently a Trump supporter, that I really wasn't going to be able to fit in on their particular network, which is fine. That's okay. I don't mind. I really don't. Everybody has a right to their opinion. So, I mean, it's just one of those things. I'm actually in talks with someone to see about bringing back a show that has actually been a pretty ardent Trump supporter for a while. We're just trying to see if we can find a time slot. He's supposed to start broadcasting again on Monday. So I'm going to shoot an email over to my business partner and see if we can find a 3-hour time slot and then let them know something hopefully before Monday. So, I mean, there are lots of things still going on here. We're still finding ways to fill in new content. I hope you guys got a chance to check out the live stream of the debate on Monday night. We now actually have a special event server, so anytime anything like that happens, we can actually not preempt the other programming and still give you guys choices. We're trying to do everything we can to continue to grow and to become a brand that we hope everybody can be proud of. So that in mind, as you can hear every time we go to break, we do have commercials, we have advertisers. We haven't made the transition yet to being fully advertiser supported. So if you like what we're doing here, make sure you visit the KLNRradio.com web pages. You'll notice at the bottom of most of them there's a donate link. Look, we're not asking for a lot. I'm not asking you to buy me a new house. This is not a Joel Osteen moment where God is telling me to tell you that you need to send me $5 million. Look, honestly, if God's telling you that, I'm not going to tell you to tell him no. But all I'm saying is, nickels, pennies, dimes, quarters, we'll take them. Whatever you've got, whatever you feel like you can afford to give. Something just to help us keep growing so that we can continue to be one of the only platforms I know that allows all views in one place. And we try not to judge each other. Look, it doesn't always work. We get heated. You may have noticed it on the round table the other night when Jackson got a little upset with the guest because she was fairly heavily in the Trump camp, and he's not. Neither are a lot of the folks that I run shows with on a regular basis, but we do have folks that are. I'm sure you hear them, and I don't mind. Look, I've never told anybody how to vote. I'm not going to start now. That's just the truth of it. There's no way I would ever tell anybody how to vote. It's just not going to happen. It's not who I am. Just the truth of it. But the simple fact of the matter is, no matter who wins, we still have work to do. Because I don't think either one of them is going to be exactly what they're pretending to be. Because Hillary Clinton has had to come a lot of ways to the right to try to see if she could grab some disenfranchised Republicans. Unfortunately, that seems to have worked. When Trump realized he couldn't get a lot of the conservatives on board, which was his own fault, by the way, because he told us he didn't need us, he then decided that it was time to see if he could swing a little bit to the left and pick up some Bernie folks. So, at this point, the one thing, and the guest brought it up the other night, but I'm going to start working on closing out with this. The one thing that I thought that was completely weird, and it was like a Twilight Zone moment, is Hillary Clinton is standing on the right side of the stage on the debate with a red pantsuit on. I almost said red dress. And Donald Trump is on the left side of the stage with a blue tie. I literally feel like we're watching the parties trade places. I know everybody talks about the fact that they did that back in the 60s. I'm not sure I buy that. I'm really not sure. Because one of the biggest things was, once the Democrats passed the, who was that? Lyndon Johnson passed the Civil Rights Act. They felt like, well, at that point, the Democrats became the Republicans and vice versa. No, not really, because the racism has still been pretty rampant in both parties. I think we had thought we stamped a lot of it out, and the simple fact of the matter is we really hadn't. They'd just been a lot quieter. They'd been apparently biding their time, and that's one of the things that has me really concerned about this election cycle. Because the simple fact of the matter is, Trump is going to Trump, and he did it on Monday night. He's going to do it again, and it's not going to be well. It's not going to go well. But anyway, so back to what we're trying to do here. So, of course, you know about Opinion Nation. You know about finding common ground. You may have remembered a couple weeks back I had Miss Bella Blue back with us, who is actually also a liberal host. We are still in talks with her to see if there's any type of way that she would want to do more permanent contributions. Sorry, I'm forgetting how to talk this morning. Or also maybe just come on from time to time as a guest host. Speaking of which, Jackson Richmond will be on with me, let's see, tomorrow's Thursday, so he'll be on with, or today's Thursday, sorry, so he'll be on with us Friday morning. So make sure you catch that. We're actually going to bring him back on. He kind of felt like he couldn't really get a word in edgewise on the panel because we had a lot of folks there. If you did check it out, I hope you liked it. We're still tweaking how we're going to do that type of stuff in the future. The plan is to do the same type of thing for each debate, and then we're going to have folks coming and going all night on election night to bring you up-to-the-minute election coverage, because at this point we are starting to try to transition KLNR Radio not only into an opinion source, but also, when we can find it, a news source. And there's some stuff in the works about that as well. But anyway, this has been Rick Robinson. I'm the host of America Off the Rails. Hope you guys enjoy the rest of your day. And again, if you tuned in the middle or you missed something, just give it a second. It'll repeat. It'll run for the next couple hours. You guys have a great day. God bless. I will talk to you actually tonight, because I'll be on the Jen and Rick show on KLNR in here tonight at 9 Eastern. So make sure you check that out. Love the co-host shows. I mean, don't get me wrong. I love to vent. I love to hang out with you guys solo. And at some point, we'll get everything set up to where we can actually start taking callers again on this show. But I like the co-host shows, and that's why I do a lot of those. I mean, I know a lot of you guys look at all the different shows that I do, and you're like, oh my God, you're like always on the radio. Yeah, pretty much. I mean, it's something I love to do. So if I have, until I can't breathe anymore, it's going to be what I'm going to do. But on that note, folks, we are out. Have a great night. God bless. Take care.